Why, hello, everyone, and welcome to Recovery Connection, episode number 9. It's nice to be back in the saddle, so to speak. We took a little break over the holidays, and I think John and I needed a break. I don't know. Did you need a break, John? Yeah, he needed a break. So it's nice to be back, and just welcome once again. Our mission here on the Recovery Connection is to connect and educate organizations and people in recovery and viewers like yourself to the vast resources that we have available in this city. And a lot of us have gone under the radar, and I think we all need to be recognized for what we're doing in this city and how we're building community and how we're providing services and also to start breaking a little bit of the stigma that's associated with some of the clients that we serve and foster a sense of belonging for everybody. Join us on Facebook and YouTube at 8 p.m. on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. And I'll be here and I'll be chatting with some friends in recovery and community organizations on topics that are really vast. And if you've been watching for the past 8 episodes, you'll know that sometimes we get off on tangents and go off the map, but that's great. It makes it interesting. If you're joining us live, send in your questions for the question and answer period at the end of our conversation. And you can, listen to Recovery Connection on all major streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast provider. And this episode will be posted on those platforms 1 week from today. It gives time for John to edit out what I just did, like coughing and sighing, and makes it sound really nice. So follow and like and share us on your social media and stay up to date on upcoming conversations and upcoming guests. I'll share with you at the end of this episode who our upcoming guest is for our Voices of Recovery, which is Thursday, what is it, John? January 27th. So join us then as well. Now, that's the technical side of things. Today, we have a good friend of Jericho here, Marilyn Matheson, and she's from the Caldwell Family Centre. I'm glad you could join us.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And how about telling us what you do and how long you've been doing it?
At the Caldwell Family Centre, we've been there since 86.
Wow.
And so helping folks in the area. It first started just in the Caldwell area.
Yeah.
We spread a little farther. We do have a food bank. And if you come to the food bank and you're outside our area, because of our, trying to keep inventory, we do have a food bank area, but it's the blurred lines.
Yeah.
So if you travel there and we help you, we will let you know where the nearest food thing.
What is the food bank called? Our catchment area, I believe it is.
Area.
Yes,
and that goes from Hunt Club to Carling, Prince of Wales to Woodruff.
Geez, that's a big area, eh?
That is a big one. Yes, we also do meals every weekday.
Yeah.
So we do breakfast and lunch, between 400 and 500 meals.
Yeah.
And they're healthy meals.
Yeah.
We've got 2 chefs and they cook really healthy.
How long have you been at Caldwell?
Just over 5 years.
Wow.
Myself, yes.
And what brought you there?
I've been in the food security biz, let's put it that way, or volunteer since, over 20 years.
Yeah.
When, first came to light in Ottawa. Now, the food bank's older than that.
Yeah.
But as you know, the food bank just started up. It's a temporary measure.
Yes.
And a lot of the agencies just started up. It's a temporary measure. But, it's not going away.
Yeah.
It's not going away anytime soon. There's always going to be folks in need.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And food is a right. It's a human right.
Yeah. So before we could go any further, you and I were talking before we got on air, and you had said that to me, and that struck a chord with me, because I don't think that a lot of us think of food as being a right. And why do you think food is a right?
It's a necessity for life.
Yes.
You don't need tobacco to live, but you do need.
Well, I know a few who might argue that, but
yeah. You feel like you're in a dive when you go off it, yes. But no, it is. You need it for life. You need the same ways you need shelter. You need water. you need food.
Yeah.
And 80 to 85% of the food, some of the families have said 80 to 85% of the food they serve their families come from the center,
Yeah.
Caldwell Centre. So, it has to be healthy. The kids can't think in school without
Yeah,
healthy
yeah.
food. Seniors can't get well without healthy food.
Yeah.
So
Or stay healthy for
or
that.
stay healthy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody can stay healthy, especially during this pandemic. We need to make sure
Yeah.
it's healthy.
Healthy.
So,
Yeah. So what brought you to Caldwell?
I knew about Caldwell because of my past experience with other agencies
Yeah.
in the city.
Yeah.
And it's I'm sorry my phone is, so I didn't turn it off. Yeah, I used to work for Caring and Sharing
Yeah.
for 12 years.
Yeah.
12 or 13 years.
Yeah.
And so I knew about the Caldwell Family Centre
Yeah.
because it was one of the agencies.
Yeah.
And I knew, working with Caring and Sharing, about the pockets around the city,
Yeah.
one of the cities in one of the wealthiest countries in
Oh,
the
yes.
world.
Yes.
And we have this type of poverty.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you imagine yourself coming to Caldwell? Like, was this something that you were planning on still working in services, or?
I've been over 30 years. I should keep saying over 30 years, but it's been since before my kids were born,
Yeah.
and my son will be 42 this year. So, it's been a while. I've always worked in nonprofit.
Yeah.
And growing up, my parents made sure we always volunteered.
Yes.
And did our volunteer service. I volunteered at camps.
Mm-hmm.
I volunteered in after-school programs. And, later in high school, you get a paid job. It's an honorarium
Yes.
to go to a camp.
Yeah.
And it was a camp for low income.
Mm-hmm.
And so we always were aware of the need out there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, even though I was brought up in a middle-class family
Mm-hmm.
and professional parents, I fell on hard times. I've been a single parent living on social assistance. I
Yeah.
know the stigma that can be.
Yeah.
I'm educated, everything else, but if it can happen to me,
Yes.
and there's a lot of our clients we see, 1 or 2 university degrees, worked overseas.
Yep.
They fall on hard times.
Yep.
Can't get another job.
Yeah.
Maybe it is an addiction problem that they fell off
Yeah.
and
Fell
so
off track.
Fell off track. It can happen
Yeah.
to anyone, and so we need to make sure as a community that organizations like yours and ours are there to help folks get back on their feet. And we have no judgment. You come for food because you're in need. And
Yeah.
there's no judgment. We had a write-up about one of our people who's at the front desk,
Yeah.
Graham, and he was on social assistance and living in community housing. And he was, because he had an accident at work, he wasn't able to work anymore. And that happens to a lot of people who are on ODSP. He was kind of shy about coming in to the food bank. This was a decade or more ago, the stigma. But he felt so welcome that now that's what he's doing. He's at the front desk, and the front desk is right below my office, and I hear him, "Hi, how are you?" Everyone that comes in,
Yeah.
it's like long lost friend to him.
Yeah.
And if it's the first time, well, here's what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
And that's really I can really relate to that, because we're kind of in the same boat. We always say that service keeps us sober, and that doing volunteer work and being of service is great for our recovery, because it helps us keep out of ourselves, and then just like Graham, we employ a lot of our employees are in recovery, because they're able to relate and able to understand. Oh, I'm not saying that's exclusive. I'm just
Everybody's different.
Everybody's different, right? Yeah. So I want to talk about all the programs. Now, when you and I first talked, That would have been before Christmas, eh? In November
Last year.
last year, yeah. Geez, it's hard to believe, eh? Last year, and I was I knew about Caldwell Family Centre because one of Jericho Road's houses is kind of close to the Caldwell Family Centre, and I was not aware until you and I talked of how many services that you provide, and I was blown away. So I have to say, good job. Because you guys do a lot. So we're going to start at the top of the list. You mentioned the food bank. How many people access your food bank on a weekly basis?
On a weekly basis, I just did the annual numbers, and last year the number of unique individuals that we had through the center was 4,422.
So if we're dividing that by 50...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a lot.
Yeah. So it's approximately 135 boxes of food a day.
Yeah.
I mean, that includes the deliveries we do on Wednesday and going to the hotel nearby that's sheltering families on a Friday.
Is deliveries new for you because of COVID, or were you doing deliveries before?
We were doing a few before.
Okay.
Folks who have mobility problems and can't get out.
Yeah.
But they more than doubled.
Yes. Yeah.
And we have to thank Mattress Mart, because Mattress Mart truck comes every Wednesday and fills up, and the driver delivers for us.
Wow.
And they also deliver down to the
Should we do a plug for them right now? Yeah.
Yes.
Mattress Mart, thank you. Okay.
I mean, they're fantastic to deliver like that. And because we have a van, but we don't have a big truck like they do. Mm-hmm. And we don't have the capacity. We don't have the
with that many boxes, a van ain't going to do.
Yes, right. That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So they're great. So that it averages out to about 135 boxes of food a day.
Yep.
And the food bank's open from Tuesday to Saturday. We are closed Monday because the Ottawa Food Bank delivers on Monday.
Oh, yes.
And it takes,
Geez, that's a day right there.
That's a day.
Yeah.
Because it has to be offloaded manually and taken down the stairs of a townhouse.
Yes.
Hand over hand.
Yes. The townhouse. We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Baby supplies.
The baby supplies, last year we gave out to 3,100 children.
Wow.
So that's diapers, formula, baby food. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you're giving out formula. I mean, but there's a lot of people out there who cannot feed naturally, can't breastfeed.
Yeah.
So they need the formula. Plus,
and it's not cheap.
And when you're living with kids in the travel lodge, that's it's sheltering there, you can't make your own baby food. You need, the jarred baby food to be able to feed kids right away. Yeah.
So now, I guess we'll get off on a tangent, because I said we would get off on tangents. You said the travel lodge. So why are people in the travel lodge?
The City of Ottawa is housing people who are homeless, families mainly.
Waiting to get on.
Waiting to find permanent housing, yes. And it's
affordable.
Affordable housing. That is the point, yes. And there's about 15 hotels across Ottawa that they're doing that.
See, that blows me away. I knew from being semi-informed outside of this bubble that the city was housing people in hotels, but I did not know it was 15 hotels.
Yes, all across the city.
Wow.
Yes. And a lot of them are newcomers.
Yeah.
And so part of our programming is clothing assistance.
Yeah.
And a lot of our clothing assistance are climate appropriate clothes for people who have just arrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for their kids.
Yeah. It takes me a long time to get climatized to this weather. I could just imagine coming from a place where you've never seen snow and the climatization that your body has to go through.
Yes, and it's also when you're from another country, the food that we usually serve may not be to your liking or culturally appropriate. Yeah. So we are making sure we have culturally appropriate food to take to these folks as well. Yeah. There's no kitchen at the hotel. Mm-hmm. They have a microwave in the room. Yeah. We have handed out a lot of slow cookers. Yeah. And so that the families can make their own meals.
Make a hot meal.
Make a hot meal. But you have to picture that they are chopping vegetables in the bathroom. Yeah. Because there's no other place. and then throwing the food into the slow cooker
Yeah.
and leaving it on all day.
Yeah.
The fridges are not much bigger than a bread box,
Yeah.
so you can't keep
A day
more
or
than-
two max.
Yeah,
Max.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. Now the food bank will lead into our meal program. Tell me about the meal program because I think it's fabulous.
That's Monday to Friday.
Monday to Friday.
And we have 2 professional chefs making healthy meals. The first chef starts at 5 a.m. We start service at 8. From 8 till 9:30, we serve from 1475 Caldwell.
Yep.
That's the Bellevue Community Centre.
Yep.
And because of COVID, it's appropriately distanced. You walk in and take out. And we ask that only one person per household comes. So
Yeah.
if you come and you have 5 people in
Yeah.
your house, you're taking 5 meals away.
Yeah.
And then the lunch service is from 1 until 2:30.
Yeah.
And it's the same process.
Yeah.
Another chef that starts at 8 makes the lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the kitchen, we're hoping we need to expand. It needs to be a commercial kitchen.
Yeah.
Because not just because of COVID, but
No, but preparing that many meals, good golly, you need a commercial kitchen.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And prior to COVID, we were doing about 85 meals a day.
Yeah.
Now we're 400 to 500 meals a day.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So,
I mean,
yes.
I always remember Michael Maidmont, who used to be the CEO of the Ottawa Food Bank. And I remember going to an Ottawa Food Bank AGM, and he began by saying the good news is we acquired the extra space where their warehouse was and a bigger fridge and whatnot. And he said the bad news is we acquired extra space and so it's great that you're able to provide that many meals a day, but it's sad that we have to provide many meals
it is
a day.
Sad. And costs have gone up.
Yeah.
And not just because of COVID, but the COVID costs have gone up. Prior to COVID, people would bring in their own casserole dishes. And,
Yeah.
we would you have 5 people in your family, here's 5 portions for your casserole dish.
Yeah.
And that helped. But now, with COVID, we have to use takeout containers
Yes.
for every meal.
Yeah.
And that gets very expensive.
Well, you and I were talking before we got on air, and I was trying to wrap my head around that because they're not cheap. Some of them can be $65, $85, $1.05, $1.45 a container.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets very expensive. Even the boxes for the food bank
Yeah.
can be expensive.
Yeah. The after-school program and after-school snack program.
The after-school program we did have prior to COVID. We did have a homework club, and the city of Ottawa has a gym near us, and they do recreational programs. And Christie Lake Kids does other programs in the area, and we're providing snacks for all of them because what we noticed was the city of Ottawa wasn't providing snacks because it's expensive, and the kids from the city program would sneak into our program.
Oh, yeah.
To eat
Grab a snack.
before.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Yeah.
and we have to provide snacks because the kids weren't sitting down to do homework. They can't think. I mean, even if they had the resources to have lunch, I have a couple of kids, they're starving by the time they get home.
Oh, of course.
And some of them may not have had lunch.
Yeah. What about the PD day camps? This really piqued my interest when you and I were talking.
Yes, because there was no other agency between us, a city, and Christie Lake
Yeah.
for doing PD day programs.
So for listeners who aren't maybe aware, a PD day is a day that the school
schools are
boards, that the schools are closed. And so if you're a single mom, or even if you're not a single parent family, both parents are working, they have to provide a babysitter or find somewhere for your child to go to because the school is closed. And what I noticed with my child is that there seems to be an awful lot of PD days lately.
Yes, yeah, and March break as well.
Oh, yes.
We've had March break programs, a lot of them, because we're into food, a lot of it revolves around food.
Yeah.
And so, cooking classes.
Yeah.
But also field trips. We had a field trip not prior to COVID. A local MPP paid for a school bus, and we had the kids from all the programs from Christie Lake, from the city, and from us. And we went to an apple farm in Barrhaven and a dairy farm. And the kids said afterwards, we didn't know apples grew on trees. And we didn't know cows went outside. So the kids, because the families don't have vehicles because they can't afford them, they go on a school bus to school, get on a school bus, and come home, and they're there for the weekend, and they don't see anything else. When my kids were growing up, I had a car. We could take them out to the country. We can show them things. These kids don't necessarily have that.
Yeah. Well, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. Now, you had just mentioned, cooking classes, you have cooking workshops and a community kitchen.
Yes. And we had one of the only halal community kitchens in the city. So it was women only.
Yep.
And this was their social time.
Yep.
It was led by a woman.
A volunteer?
It was led by a volunteer.
Yep.
And our manager of food and nutrition is a man. So he had to take all the food over before it started and left and then couldn't stick around.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that was always quite popular, and a social time for these women who may not have otherwise been able to get out because of duties at home.
Yeah.
And they would produce food for their dinner that night and take home to their families.
Yeah, and also there's a carry on of information, right?
Exactly.
How to cook certain things and whatnot. How big is your community kitchen?
The community kitchen, because the brakes are on it now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But there was about 20 people involved in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it may be different 20 people every
time. Yeah. Summer day camp for the kids.
Yes, and again, COVID has put a damper on that.
Yes.
But the city did have a sort of a reduced one.
Yeah.
And we provided full meals, full hot meals, because a lot of these kids, when school's out, they can't take advantage of the school meal program.
Okay.
And so we provided full meals for them because that may be their dinner as well.
Yeah. And are those camps throughout the summer?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. We would have done a 2-week
Yep.
at a time
Yep.
over 8 weeks.
Yep.
Yes.
And since COVID, nothing.
Since COVID, it's very difficult because of the size of our place.
Yep.
The distancing.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It was difficult.
Yeah.
So we just partnered with the other organizations and provided food, and that way, But unfortunately, in the Ottawa housing community, just in that area, there's over 500 people under the age of 18. So you can imagine how many kids there are in the townhouses and the apartment buildings.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So there is a need for organizations to take on kids programming.
Yeah. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. Okay, our clothing depot and footwear for kids. I love the footwear for kids. Tell us about that.
Yes, that was started by a young man. He saw a need in the community that kids need shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, we have seen kids go to school in flip-flops in the middle of November until the snow flies, because in the Ottawa schools, you have to have indoor shoes and outdoor
shoes. Yeah.
And that is very expensive for families, especially if you have a number of kids. So he came along and said, let's partner. And so we've taken him under, our umbrella, and he's provided a lot of volunteer drivers. So our clothing assistance goes across Ottawa. So you need shoes, boots, or clothes, winter jacket. Get a referral from a social worker or from your community resource center, and we will follow up and deliver to your door.
And make sure you get them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the volunteers that go to the door, if they see the need for food, they're all carrying a box of non-perishable food in their trunk
Yeah.
that they can hand over to
Yeah.
the family and say, and by the way, your nearest food agency is such and
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
And so it continues. So we're passing along information as well.
Yeah. That's fabulous. Fabulous. Employment readiness programs.
Yes, we pre-COVID we had a sewing program, and with the Clothing Depot is sort of a social enterprise that is used clothing, and with the sewing program, you can marry those two together. Take some clothing out of the Clothing Depot and repurpose it, and reuse it.
Reuse, recycle,
Yes.
repurpose. Yeah.
And
Yep.
and every dry cleaner, as you know, needs mending.
Yep.
There's a lot of people who do dressmaking. There are some clothing manufacturers around. And so we were getting these folks ready for the employment market. We partnered with outside organizations that came in to help provide workshops on resume writing and finding jobs online. And what we found with that is not everybody knows how to search online.
Yeah.
So then we had a computer basic program to teach folks, the basics, because that you can't mail a resume anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah.
online. And so that's an employment readiness program. Right now with the Clothing Depot, we're giving experience and teaching people retail.
Okay.
Now, it's not going to be the same type of retail as you see at Walmart
Yeah.
we don't have an inventory system like that
Yeah.
with barcodes. But it gives you the basics
Yeah.
and it gives you references.
Yeah.
And for new Canadians, getting Canadian experience. And for youth who want a retail job during the holiday season, it gives them experience.
Yeah. I chuckle a little because when you say, computer skills, I fall into that category. I'm so glad I have someone who helps me with that. The Drop-In Centre.
The drop-in, and of course it's closed because of COVID,
Yes.
but it was a big draw. People, especially folks who need shelter, who don't currently have a home,
Yeah.
would come in and they could spend the day. The coffee was always on, and then the meals were served. And you could stay. We always had a television that people could watch when some of the big games were on.
Yeah,
People
yeah.
didn't have access to televisions,
Or
whether-
cable.
Or cable. So, that's what the drop-in is. It avoids, reduces isolation
Yeah.
and gives people shelter
Yeah.
for temporary time.
And as we all know, isolation is a killer.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. Yeah.
So why is there such a need for all of these services in that area?
Well, I'm a big proponent of place-based services
Yep.
because it is a big community of Ottawa community
Yep.
housing, and even the blocks around there that are not Ottawa community
Yep.
housing are low-income folks.
Yep.
Actually, the people in the community housing are slightly better off because the community housing is rent to income.
Yes.
So if your income goes down,
Your rent goes down.
your rent goes
Yeah.
down. The market rent, if you lose your job, you still have to pay it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And so let's talk about affordable housing. How long are people waiting for affordable housing in this city?
There's a waiting list of about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I read in the Ottawa Citizen, I think it was right before Christmas, and they had said 10.6 years. Yeah.
Yes. Which is unbelievable in one of a rich country like Canada that we have these pockets of poverty.
And why do you think, so if I could give you the magic wand and say, let's fix the affordable housing crisis, because it is a crisis in this city, where would you begin?
I think I would begin with families.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to discount the single gentleman who's living rough. But I think that if you have kids, the kids need to grow up
Yeah.
in a secure
Yeah.
environment. I feel sorry for the parents of the kids that are being sheltered in hotels.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, they're not allowed to play in the hallways. So they're all crammed in a small hotel room with no cooking facilities
Yeah.
except for the crock pot we
Yeah.
gave
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
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 So I would start with them. And I know that the Alliance to End Homelessness, and you had Katie on
Yeah,
a while
yeah,
ago, they phoned around to some market rent places that were advertising that were vacant to see if they would take folks that relied on housing subsidies, and lined up quite a few. Unfortunately, red tape, they didn't get them in fast enough. The renters, the landlords wanted to rent as
Yeah,
fast as
yeah.
they could, and so
Yeah.
that didn't happen. But I think that needs to happen because the kids need to be in a secure
Yeah.
place and go to the same school.
Yeah.
With the hotels, they have been moved around. Families have moved from a different hotel to different hotel. So they never know if they're going back to the same school with their friends
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah. And they could have started to get roots and then being moved.
Yes.
And so I agree. I think starting at the families is a great idea because we know here at Jericho that adverse childhood experiences are the number one predominator for addiction and substance use disorders.
Yes, absolutely.
And so the more trauma and adverse childhood experiences you have between the ages of 3 and 12, the more likely you are to smoke cigarettes, to use substances, to have health issues, to on and on.
And later in life, that
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to look at it, and one way of looking at it is the numbers of dollars, but you also have to look at it. It's a social impact.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah. It's definitely twofold, right?
Yes.
And that's what I always say. We either pay for it now or we pay
Pay for
triple
it.
for it later.
Exactly.
Right?
In the criminal
And
justice
we
system.
don't look at it that way, and especially in the criminal justice system. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
as well as the healthcare system
Yeah.
and mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever money we invest now it's gonna cost us triple if we don't.
Yes, but it's hard to prove that.
I know.
And that's where the problem lies. If we could prove to the various levels of government that if they gave us money now, we would save them money later.
Yeah. Yeah. But you would think that as we press forward as a society that it's just evident. You and I know, right?
From the experience.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Caldwell Tenant Circle Crime Prevention Award.
Yes.
Tell
that was
me
great.
about that.
Yes, that was great. I mean, the Tenant Circle does a lot of stuff. They organize events
Yep.
for folks. We chip in when we can with the food and with
So
the
what
space.
is the Tenant Circle?
The Tenant Circle is the Ottawa community housing people who live in the community housing.
Okay.
And they want to make their neighborhood a better place. And I have to say that the Caldwell area, it gets a bad rap in the media, but the families are very welcoming. A lot of the bad rap in the media are from people who are not living there. As you know.
So I grew up in this city. So I can tell you from my experience when I grew up, because I grew up in the Hintonburg area, that as a little child, it was just like we don't go to that area.
Yes.
And that's the way it was.
So they have their own. I mean, they have to make their own community.
Yeah.
We're seeing second, third, and fourth generations living in the housing there. And you're right, there is a divide because the kids there are bused to school, and they're bused to school with kids that come in from places like their parents own the home.
Yeah.
And so it's and those parents on the other side of Maryville,
Yes,
some
yeah.
of them are saying, you don't go there.
Yeah.
But the families, they are families, and they want the same thing for their families
As what
everyone,
you do. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A safe community,
Yeah.
and they do safety walks. and point out to and Ottawa Community Housing goes with them.
Yeah.
And they point out to Ottawa Community Housing, could we have a light here because it's a dark corner, and Ottawa Community Housing
Listens.
listens.
Fabulous.
They absolutely do. And the city councillor has also accompanied the safety walks. I've been on the safety walks with them,
Yeah.
and yes, and they listen and they try to do what they can to make it a safe community.
Yeah, an
But
environment,
it,
yeah.
and it's all headed up by the Tenants Association, who are trying to make it safe for their
Yeah.
kids.
I think that's just wonderful. That's taking responsibility,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about was how do we, as organizations, start? We were talking about this before, taking down the silos and communication for one another, and crossover of services, and helping each other out. Why? How? Let me back up. Why is there such a lack of communication, do you think, between us?
I think that it comes from organization thinks they're in competition with each other, and we shouldn't be. We're not competing for client. We all have enough clients,
Yeah.
but we can better serve the clients by partnering.
Yeah.
So if we do the food, why don't you do the kids programs, and we'll give you the food for the kids programs.
Yes. Yeah.
That'll save us money.
Yeah.
And any money that we would have applied for a kids program, why don't you take
Yeah.
and enhance your program?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than spreading that donor and grant money too thin.
Yes. Yes. Because that's what I was saying before, is that at Jericho Road we realized that we can't be everything to everybody. None of us can.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like that what you said about there is no competition for those donation dollars.
Yes.
All the money's going to the people that need it.
Yes.
Bottom line,
Yeah,
right?
bottom line.
Yeah. How do you think we can better communicate with one another and help each other out? Where do you think we got to start to realize that we all need each other and we should be trying to communicate a bit better?
I think the City of Ottawa has headed up the Human Needs Task Force
Yep.
during this pandemic, and it's proved to be a great thing.
Yeah.
And now they've split off into different categories, but there's crossover. Like I attend the meetings of the finance and food security, and also the homelessness and sheltering, and there's crossover because if you're homeless, you need the food.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
So the agencies on there, some of them never knew each other
Yes,
existed
yeah.
until we got together. But, the Ottawa Food Bank had made a great start in it with their agency meetings.
Yes.
I remember the days when you would have a faith community say, oh, Mrs. Smith came in and asked for food. That must mean there's other people in the community that needs food. Let's open a food cupboard
Yes.
in our basement.
Yeah.
And there could be a food agency 2 blocks from there.
Yes. Okay, so this is the story that I always bring up, and I remember talking with a few people who were at the food bank, and one of them had said to me, because they knew that Jericho Road was a faith ministry, and so they said, we run into this problem, and what happened was there was Church X on this street, and they decided to open a food bank. And then 2 blocks away, another church of another denomination decided to open up a food bank and went to the food bank and to get, supplies and whatnot. And the food bank was like, do people not talk to one another? You're 2 blocks away from one another. We can't put in 2 food banks 2 blocks away from one another. And so that's just point of Parcel, that we don't talk to one another.
Yes.
And that we need to.
And we need to, yes, definitely we need to. And cross faith communities as well. And I could, if I can go off, I can tell you a funny story about that.
Hit me.
My brother's with the United Church.
Okay.
And my aunt was a Catholic nun. and they both went to Oshawa. So there was another person named Matheson who was with the Baptist Church. And if you drove down this one street, you would see that Reverend Robert Matheson with United Church, Sister Ann Matheson with she was at the food bank at the time.
Yep.
And then I believe it was Paul Matheson at the Baptist Church. So they all got together for religious holidays and threw them all together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think one of the ideas that we had on this episode, John, it was my memory's failing me, from St. Peter and St. Paul.
Kate Saunderson.
That's it, Kate Saunderson. Yeah. And she made a lovely suggestion. She said, we need to have a dinner because food is a great attractor for us, and we need to have a dinner where all of us service people get together, and not an organized dinner, but just a dinner where it's very non-organized and just very casual, and we can all just sit around and talk and introduce ourselves to one another and make a headway to get through to start communicating with one another. And I thought it was a great idea. So when this COVID is over, I'm going to hold her up to it because I think it's just a fabulous idea. Let's talk about COVID. I know. Roll the eyes. I know. So, how has it been with COVID, and where are you struggling?
We're struggling in getting volunteers. We had a lot of long-term, very dedicated volunteers before COVID. Unfortunately, a lot of them were senior.
Yeah.
And because, the city was suggesting at the time that, if you're over a certain age, you shouldn't be out and about. And so a lot of them left. And we got new volunteers because people weren't going to work. But now people are going back to work.
Yes.
And so,
Yeah.
so it's...
So there's no changeover back.
Yeah.
You're left empty.
We're left empty.
Yeah.
We're looking for volunteers. And because of the way we're set up with the food bank storage in the basement and having to carry the boxes of food up and down,
Yes.
we need people who are physically able to do that. And we also need people who can work in the kitchen and help the chefs out, do the dishes, chop vegetables, put the food in the containers and hand the food out. The other thing that we, extra people we need, because we're working out of 3 buildings. We have the food bank in one building, with the meals in another, and the clothing depot is the 3rd building. The protocols, somebody at the door, you have to have a mask on and spray the hands.
Yeah.
So, and make sure people are distancing.
Yes.
And in the clothing depot, it's only so many people at a time.
So you almost need a volunteer just for the COVID protocols.
Yes.
Yeah.
3 volunteers a day just for those in shifts.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's 6 volunteer shifts. And then we need 2 volunteers in the basement sorting food.
Yeah.
And we need 2 volunteers at the stations handing out food. And we need, and
Had you ever come to a point where you couldn't do something because you didn't have the volunteers in the past couple of years?
And that's where the manager of finance and the manager of food and the executive director are serving are serving at a food bank or the meals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the other work doesn't get done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm quite familiar with the juggling of balls, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things that I like to ask is what puts us in a position to pivot so quickly? We've had to do a lot of pivots.
Absolutely.
So what do you think makes you able to pivot so well and so quickly?
I think the dedicated people that we have and the City of Ottawa and the Ottawa Community Housing, with their help, because the City of Ottawa used to lease the Bellevue Community Centre, and they gave up the lease for us, and the Ottawa Community Housing allowed us to take it. It is more expensive, the rent, than the townhouses. It's actually $5 a year for the community. The townhouses are $1 a year. But, I think we'll hold a fundraiser for that.
Put me in for half.
But I mean, they have been terrific. They know the need in the community, and they have helped us
Yeah.
in any way they can pivot as fast as
Yeah.
we need to.
And I hate using the word pivot, but
That's what we've
that's
done.
what we've done, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. As a nonprofit, I also say that we need to be scrappy. We need to be able to adapt and change very quickly. Give me an example of how you guys have adapted or changed really quickly in your programs.
We had to, when the shutdown started,
Yeah.
it was the 15th of March.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had.
Can we say the year just so for impact?
Yeah,
2020.
2020. And that was the start of a March break.
Yes.
We had a full March break program. We had a grantor that gave us money for staff, and the staff had worked for 2 weeks prior to organize field trips, to schedule bus trips, museum passes. The city councilor got us free museum passes to certain museums. We lined up the chef for cooking classes. Everything was a go, even down to the Friday before. All the meals for the kids were already
set up and
yeah. And then they had to spend the weekend phoning the parents and saying,
no go.
no go, can't do it.
Good golly.
Yeah. And that's a lot of kids that are heartbroken.
Yeah.
Plus, there's those people, the grant money.
And what about the parents?
The parents, yes. Yeah, the parents are looking for some relief.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What do we do now?
What do we do now?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like putting anybody on the spot, but I guess I'm going to put the city on the spot right now and say that our demand for services in the past 2 years has really increased, but our funding hasn't.
Yes.
And what have you done to make up for the lack of funding?
We're trying extra fundraising
Yeah.
and applying for other grants.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of grants for COVID related.
Yes.
But a lot of them are ending in March.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep qualified staff when you can only contract them until March. They're going to lose them at the end of February because
Yeah.
they're all going to be looking for other jobs because they don't know if their job's secure.
Yeah.
And that because of the amount that we've increased, and we just crunched the numbers today, that it's 198% increase in the number of client contacts between 2019 and 2021.
That's double.
Yes. Yeah. Almost
No, but
200%.
think about that.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
And,
So-
and as you and I were saying, sorry to interrupt, you and I were saying before we got on air, this is not going to
It's
stop.
not gonna go
This
away.
is not just end of March. We're through this fourth wave, fifth wave, whatever, which one we're in, and then poof.
Not everybody who has found themselves in a food insecure position during the pandemic is magically going to be food secure
Yes.
at the end of March. And there's a lot of the people that we have seen that we haven't seen in years.
Yeah.
Because, years ago they found a job.
Yeah.
They didn't need the food bank
Yeah.
anymore. Now they're back
Back, yeah.
because they were laid off their job. And it's hard to get back into a job. And,
Yes. If the job is there.
if the job is there.
And then the other side of that coin is the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction says that we are going to be experiencing mental health and addiction issues from this pandemic far beyond when they wave the white flag and say, we're out of this. And so, people who were experiencing extreme isolation, people who had maybe experienced a relapse or whatnot during the pandemic because of the isolation, because of their community had to stop working, stop meeting, and all that stuff. We're still going to be seeing these effects for years to come.
There are going to be a certain demographic are going to be afraid to coming out of their apartments.
Yeah.
anymore. There is a Ottawa Community Housing building on Kirkwood that is seniors only, and we provide hot meals there twice a month, and along with a bag of fresh fruit and any snacks that we have. And we partner with a church there so that we drop off the food and they go door to door to make sure that the seniors are okay. Because prior to COVID, of course, they all came down to the lounge and we served them food and they bring their own plates, and it was
Who's the church that you partner with? Okay.
we partner with so
So many, yes.
churches.
Okay. I was just curious for that area. Last thing on my list was the community center. Tell me about your capital campaign, which is coming soon, because I want everybody to know about
Yes,
that. Yeah.
We've applied for a federal grant to
Okay.
do this, and we're going to have a capital campaign that we are going to revamp the community center and add more space onto the back.
Yeah.
And with the blessing of Ottawa Community Housing, and so we need walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers when you're doing that.
Yes, that many.
Yes.
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
The other thing is it's going to be a shared space with other community organizations. The Carleton Community Health Centre, for example, does youth programming.
Yeah.
The chaplaincy does programming on the weekend, community dinners.
Yeah.
So Christie Lake Kids and the City of Ottawa doing the children's programming. Even the Royal Ottawa comes in to meet clients face to face. So we're going to have private space for those type of meetings.
I love community space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to accomplish so much.
And then the computers that we have, the computer cafe, which is often an entry point
Yeah.
for people needing wraparound service.
Yeah. Yeah. When do you think your capital campaign is going to start, so all our listeners can know?
Hopefully the summer.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, I know that after you and I have had this beautiful conversation, we're going to stay in touch, because I'd like to see how Jericho can help out.
Partner, yeah.
Yeah. Even with our insights to addiction, we do a nice workshop for families and businesses and people who may be affected by addiction and don't know what to do, and it's a nice little entranceway for them to start figuring things out.
Yes.
Yeah, something I was thinking about. We have a question and answer period. No, I didn't think there were going to be any with our first episode back after such a long break. So I guess I'm going to do a few announcements. Our next Voices of Recovery episode is January 27th, where we'll be having Josh B. And Josh has a really good story. I've known Josh for quite a while, and just his journey of recovery is really, really interesting. The episode of Recovery Connection will be available next Thursday, hopefully on time, on all your major streaming platforms. For more information or to donate, visit the Caldwell Family Centre website at caldwellfamilycentre.ca. I'll say that one more time, caldwellfamilycentre.ca. And their phone number is 613-728-1800. Don't forget our coldest night of the year walk for Jericho Road, and for a bunch of ministries and services in Ottawa, the Ottawa Mission, Hope Cornerstone for Women, Capital City Mission. Who am I missing, John? Youth Services Bureau. And of course, Jericho Road. Our coldest night of the year walk in this city is February 26th. The website is up and running, so get your teams registered. And if you're on the coldest night of the year website and you're looking for a team, one step at a time, Kevin Williams, you can just type that in. Thank you. And make a donation or sign up to walk. We'd really like to see you walk. It's a virtual event this year, so we're walking in our communities. So it would be a great time for families to get together and walk in their community. And last but not least, have I missed anything with you? Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to touch on?
No. It's been a joyous, fabulous
well,
conversation.
that's supposed to be my line. Thank you so much for being here. I'm sure we are. No, I know we are going to see each other again in the future, and I pray a blessing over the Caldwell Family Centre because you guys do amazing work. And I've known clients who have had used your services, and they have nothing but great things to say about everything that you guys do there. And you make this city a better place, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Because without agencies like yours, this city wouldn't be what it is. And I really mean that.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm hoping that we're in some ways relieving the effect of poverty
Yeah.
on these families.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Remember, in 2 weeks for our Voices of Recovery episode with Josh B. And we'll see you then. Thanks for joining us. Thank you, Marilyn. And we'll see everybody soon. God bless everybody.